Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we'll talk about expenses and the management of expenses. What do these two individuals have in common? They both live paycheck to paycheck. Living paycheck to paycheck is a regular occurrence where workers spend all their earned income on or before they receive the next pay, leaving zero savings and increasing debt on a regular basis. This is more common than you would think. According to some recent stats, about 35% of workers in the UK live paycheck to paycheck. In Canada, that number is about 50%. And in the US, it's a staggering 80%. These numbers include low, middle, and high-income individuals, all struggling with managing their expenses with a growing pile of debt. There are workers earning below $50,000 living paycheck to paycheck. There are workers earning $100,000 still living paycheck to paycheck. And believe this or not, there are people earning over $200,000 and still living paycheck to paycheck. This suggests that this is not really an issue of earning. The issue is with the expense management and the average employee's lack of understanding of how debt can quickly accumulate and compound over time. Developed economies like the US, the UK, and Canada are largely credit-based societies. You can literally pay for anything with the money you do not have. This can vary from big-ticket items like getting a mortgage for a house to paying for soda with a credit card. In these economies, the society encourages the use of credit, and those with a history of taking credit and making repayments are rewarded with access to more credit. This is totally different from developing economies, where most goods and services are still paid for with cash. This is prevalent in countries in Africa and South and East Asia, as these regions make up more than half of the world's unbanked population, according to the World Bank. Moving from a cash-based society to a credit-based society requires a mindset change. You will most likely pay for things on credit, especially as you will need to build a credit score. It is important to recognize this and take control to ensure things don't spiral out of control. It can be comfortable and convenient to pay for things on credit. Why not? It's great getting access to goods or services now and paying at a future date. This, however, encourages spending money we don't have and also does not encourage the tracking and monitoring of expenses. Let's use a quick illustration to articulate the difference between a credit-based and a cash-based society. Jim lives in the US, has only $80 left in his bank account. Jim also has a credit card with a $10,000 limit. Jim can potentially spend $10,080 before his next paycheck, even though he actually only has $80. Jim can easily go to an Apple store and buy things with technically money that he doesn't have. Lola lives in Nigeria and only has 50,000 naira left in her bank account, and she has no access to credit. That's it. Lola can essentially only spend 50,000 naira until the next paycheck. Remember George, the professional banker who was looking to migrate from Kenya to Canada? George got his wish granted, and he migrated to Canada through the Express Entry program. It's been a year and a half since George moved. George was able to secure a high-paying job with one of the 5 big banks in Canada as a senior manager. He earns a monthly post-tax income of $5,650, pretty good salary in Canada. George recently got a mortgage and he bought a house in the GTA area for easy commute to downtown Toronto where he works. While George using the train to commute, he also got a car loan to buy a Lexus NX SUV, which retails for about $47,000. Sweet ride, but comes with a $842 monthly payment. George spends a ton eating out as well, as he doesn't have time to cook due to his long working hours. George enjoys going out for drinks with his friends, and he is also a fitness buff. He's regularly going to the gym to keep his body in top shape. George has noticed that his credit card debt has been steadily increasing. On a regular basis, he is spending more than he earns and is unable to set any money aside to pay down the growing pile of debt. The average Canadian salary is about $55,000, which works to about $3,500 a month. So after tax, George actually makes a pretty good income, but he still ends up with zero disposable income. Now let's take a look at George's account statements to figure out where his money is actually going. George's mortgage is $2,109 a month, which takes up about 37% of his post-tax income. His car loan is $842, which takes up 15%. 9% is spent on dining and eating out. 6% goes to groceries and car insurance. 5% goes to property tax, as well as public transportation costs and electronics. Utility bills and clothing also account for 4% each. George spends almost $5,800 on a monthly basis out of a monthly income of $5,650, so he is actually short about $200 on a monthly basis. If this trend remains unchanged over a year, for example, George would have accumulated a debt of $2,700, and this excludes compounded interest. More importantly, if George loses his job, he wouldn't be able to pay his bills, his mortgage, his car loan, etc. In a scenario like this, how can George turn things around? George can follow these 3 steps in order to become better at managing his finances and expenses. Step 1. Break down your current expenses into wants and needs. Step 2. Identify opportunities to adjust spending. Step 3. Create a new monthly budget using the 50-30-20 rule as a guide. These steps work the same if you're in a hole like George or you simply want to get your finances under control. Getting your finances in control as a new resident in a new country is critical, and for those just about to move, I would recommend you create a budget even before you move. This will ensure you don't have any surprises financially. Now let's take a look at these 3 steps in more detail. The first step requires categorizing expenses into wants and needs. Needs can simply be defined as unavoidable living expenses. Examples include paying for housing, which is your rent or your mortgage, food, utility bills, and that includes gas, water, power, transportation, insurance, and this also includes your car, your home, your health. These are unavoidable and basic items we have to pay for to function properly in the society. Wants, on the other hand, are the extras, the things we can live without but choose to pay for. Wants are not inherently bad. They can improve our standard of living and our quality of living. Examples include gym membership, eating and dining out, electronic gadgets, cable TV subscriptions, vacations. Luxury items, by their very definition, are wants. No one needs to drive a Ferrari or own a Chanel bag to survive or function in the society. With those basic definitions of needs and wants, it is worth relooking at needs. Wants sometimes manifest as needs due to a number of factors which we're not going to get into in this video. For example, housing is definitely a need, but our wants can dictate how we go about satisfying this basic need. So you can choose to live on the building on the left or the building on the right. Both satisfy the basic need, but one comes with a higher price tag. Another example is with transportation. The basic need can be met by public transportation, a 5-year-old Toyota, a brand new Toyota, a brand new Tesla, a brand new BMW X5, you get the picture. Our wants manifest in how we choose to meet the basic needs. Using George as an example, his current expenses are shown here, broken down into needs and wants. His needs currently take up 81% of his post-tax income, while the wants make up 23%. So, he spends an extra 4% on top of what he makes. The mortgage payment and car payment alone take up more than half his paycheck. This tells us that there is more opportunity to save on needs as opposed to wants. Now this takes us to step 2. The next step involves a review of wants and needs to identify opportunities to adjust spending. Let's start with the easier bit, the wants. There are always opportunities to reduce expenses that fall into these categories. Do you need to eat out as much as you currently do? Do you need to grab drinks with friends every other day? Do you need that many TV subscriptions, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Apple TV, and so on? Specifically for George, there is an opportunity to cut down on eating out by reducing the number of times per week that he spends eating out and grabbing drinks with friends. There's also an opportunity to cut down on expenses like TV subscriptions, money spent on electronics, and clothing. Now, it's a bit trickier to adjust spending on needs, well, because they're needs. However, needs can sometimes turn out to be more expensive than they currently need to be, like I explained before. Specifically for George, there is an opportunity to trade down his Lexus SUV to a cheaper vehicle, preferably a sedan, as he really doesn't actually need an SUV right now. Okay, so we're now at the final step that involves creating a budget that incorporates the new figures for the item George is adjusting his spending on. Before then, let's take a quick look at the 50-30-20 rule. The 50-30-20 rule essentially states that 50% of your post-tax income should be spent on needs, 30% on wants, and 20% on savings towards building an emergency fund, debt repayment, building an investment portfolio, etc. While this is a good rule of thumb and a good place to start your expense management journey because the ratios automatically ensure you are saving 20% every month, you should ultimately look to improve your savings ratios by further cutting down wants and/or needs where possible, or increasing your income using promotions or side hustles or whatever, without necessarily letting lifestyle creep to set in. You know what's even better than saving 20%? Well, saving 21% or 25%, maybe 50%. George has now created a new budget where 64% of his post-tax income is allocated to needs, 15% to wants, and 21% towards savings. While the individual allocations to needs and wants are somewhat skewed from the 50 to 30% originally recommended, overall, George is able to save 21% of his income, which is better than 15%, which is better than 20% as previously recommended. George was able to shave off about $800 from his needs by getting a cheaper car, which had the double effect of reducing his car payments as well as car insurance. He also shaved off about $700 from his needs by reducing his eating out expenses as well as clothing, electronics, and gym memberships. George also introduces a new item in his budget for miscellaneous expenditures to avoid dipping into his savings and to give himself some buffer. George now saves $1,100 on a monthly basis, which is directed to paying off his credit card balance first and then building an emergency fund as well as investing in the stock market. The best time to start managing your expenses if you haven't started is now. Irrespective of where you are with managing expenses, there are other useful tips that can help you along this journey. Number 1, resist paying for wants on credit. By following this rule, you only pay for wants with the money you have. Number 2, adopt the cash envelope method. The cash envelope system recommends withdrawing cash and tucking it away in separate envelopes for each budget category. So assuming you had a monthly budget of $300 and $400 for groceries and entertainment, you would have 2 separate envelopes labeled groceries and entertainment. Each one's going to be filled with the money you want for that category, $300 and $400 respectively. The cash in each envelope would only be spent for that budget category. This helps you stick to a budget. I would only recommend this approach if you have serious control issues with spending and tracking your expenses, and also if you are just starting off in your expense management journey. Number 3, look for ways to increase your income Maybe get a better paying job, a promotion, some side hustles, whatever you can to increase your income. There is a tendency to succumb to lifestyle inflation with increasing income. As much as possible, this should be avoided, and the increased income should be directed towards paying bills, raising emergency funds, or investing. Number 4. Build an emergency fund. Your emergency fund should have 3 to 6 months of monthly expenses saved and placed in a high-yield savings account to ensure the funds are easily accessible in case of an emergency. Finally, work out your net worth on a regular basis. I recommend doing this monthly if you can. This has the benefit of showing you the holistic progress being made towards building wealth. Managing your expenses is part of the larger process of building wealth, so seeing the impact of managing your expenses in terms of building wealth can serve as a motivation to continue on that path. Thanks for watching the video. If you found this helpful, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you all next time.